Gay Alliance Towards Equality called a news conference to outline a series of violent incidents they claim occurred against gays during the recent Sea Festival. 3 members of the group told reporters that on a number of occasions, gays and lesbians were subjected to verbal abuse, physical violence, and gang assaults. This was one example.
And we noticed about a gang of 15 people in a parking lot. And we pulled in to see what was going on. And when we got out of our car, they seemed to be supremely beating 2 people. We approached to help and step in, as no one else seemed to have, and managed to get one of the people away, and that person disappeared right away. And then there was one person who was being severely beaten. Like, once the fight was over, you couldn't even identify his face.
Don Hann, Gate spokesman, says this wave of violence stems from the social hatred of homosexuals that he claims has been deepened by the anti-gay attitude of City Hall and the police department. Hann also accused the police of entrapment by spying on them when they meet on the beach at English Bay, and then lay charges ranging from loitering to gross indecency. Hann says his group will hold a rally next week in the West End to determine how gays in the city can defend themselves more effectively. He indicated they will in future take a much harder line.
The point behind this is that we want to pressure officials, we want to pressure governments, we want to pressure institutions into recognizing that we exist, that we experience repression, that we want equality in this society, and we want protection from the violence that we as a minority group endure. And that is the point of every demonstration. We intend, as we have been doing for the last decade, coming out of the closet, saying we are here, we are visible, and we will fight back. We will not sit silently and passively anymore as we have done for decades because of the severity of the oppression. And that time is now.
It appears the confrontation between the gay community, City Council, the police, and the straight people is again about to come to a head. Bob Gillingham, CBC News, Vancouver.
And we are now joined by Don Hann. He is a gay rights activist, one of the key members of GATE, as you saw, joining in 1973, and speaking in that story, as you just saw. Don, thanks for being here. What goes through your mind when you see that story at the time?
Well, I'm thrown back to that decade, and reminded of how difficult things were in the 1970s, that there was hostility everywhere, all over, from every institution, from the state, from churches, and a ubiquitous ignorance about homosexuality as an ordinary form of human desire. And it reminds me of, the 10 years, which began really with Stonewall, but in Canada with 1971, a national demonstration for legal recognition, legal rights, and equality. Sometimes, while you're in the midst of that kind of struggle, it's not too long after that you realize what you were actually up against.
Yeah. And in the 9 years that GATE was active, what kind of campaigning did you do to advocate against discrimination against the LGBTQ plus community?
Well, GATE had a very sophisticated and well-developed set of strategies and programs. We would intervene in provincial and federal elections, demand that politicians make public statements in support of us. None of them would in the early 70s. The first one was Rosemary Brown. She was the only elected official in Canada who would support us. So we did that. We fought discrimination cases. In 1971, we wanted to rent the room from the Y for our AGM. The Y said, no, we don't rent to homosexuals. We went to the Human Rights Commission. The Human Rights Commission said, we have no law that we can use to assist you or being help to you. So that kind of discrimination went on, and they wanted to print a leaflet with a publisher. No, you're homosexuals. We don't print fag leaflets. And then the big one, of course, was the Vancouver Sun, which refused a 3-line ad, 6 issues, $2.50, gay tide. And that fight went on for 6 years. The ad was submitted in late 1973. We went through the judicial system, the program, and finally ended up in the Supreme Court of Canada on October the 5th, 1978. Technically, we lost, but the dissenting opinion was written by Chief Justice Bora Laskin, with 3 other justices concurring, and it was a political victory.
If I can ask you, appreciate your time, how much progress do you think you've made in that time since, looking at today?
I think the progress has been enormous. It's been huge. I was saying to one of your reporters a little while ago, when in 1971, we had no idea, either in Canada or the U.S. or Western Europe, how long this was going to take. Would it take 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years? We had no idea. It was just, but because the movement grew so massively, millions of people came out of the closet and they identified as gay. And so it mushroomed across the Western world.
Don Hann, I'm so sorry we have to cut this short. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.